At dawn on September 12, 1683, the city of Vienna was moments away from collapse. Behind its crumbling walls, exhausted defenders prepared for what they believed would be their final hour. Outside the gates, one of the largest armies the Ottoman Empire had ever assembled tightened its grip, confident that Europe's eastern frontier was finally theirs. But then, from the hills beyond the city, a sound rose, a distant thunder that would soon become the largest cavalry charge in history. This is the story of the morning when Europe almost fell, and the decision that changed world history. To understand why this moment mattered, we need to step back. 17th century Europe was fractured, exhausted, and deeply unsure of its future. Religious conflict from the 30 Years' War had left regions devastated and alliances bitter. The Holy Roman Empire was struggling to maintain unity, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth was weakening, France was expanding aggressively in the west. And rising from the east was a power that had spent 2 centuries pressing steadily into Europe. The Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans already controlled most of Hungary and the Balkans. Vienna, the imperial capital, stood like a lonely fortress on the frontier. For Ottoman Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa Pasha, conquering Vienna wasn't just strategy, it was destiny. Taking the city would open the road into Central Europe. And beyond that, influence, tribute, and the kind of prestige no Ottoman commander had earned in a generation. By 1683, everything was in place. The empire gathered a massive coalition army, Ottoman soldiers, Tatar cavalry, auxiliary units from across its territories. Their target was clear. Vienna. The siege begins. In July 1683, the Ottoman host arrived before the city. Vienna was not prepared. Its walls were old, undermanned, and in desperate need of reinforcement. Inside were a mix of soldiers, townspeople, and volunteers, all determined, but stretched thin. Kara Mustafa believed he could take the city quickly, but Vienna refused to fall. Each day the Ottomans dug trenches closer to the walls, detonating mines, and forcing breaches. Each night the defenders scrambled to rebuild, patch, and counterdig to stop the collapse. As the summer wore on, food dwindled, disease spread, and morale waned. By early September, the Ottoman army controlled nearly the entire outer city. All that remained was the inner ring, and even that was visibly crumbling. Vienna was hanging by a thread, but the defenders had sent a desperate plea for help, carried through enemy lines by a handful of riders. And that call reached a man who would become the central figure of this story, King Jan III Sobieski of Poland. Sobieski was a warrior king known for both strategy and courage. He understood what was at stake. If Vienna fell, Poland would likely be next. So he agreed to lead a relief army, a coalition force of Polish, German, and Austrian soldiers, toward the besieged city. It was a long, brutal march through mountains and rough terrain. The coalition moved slowly, burdened by supply issues and the politics of coordinating 3 different armies. Many doubted they would arrive in time. Inside Vienna, the defenders had no idea whether help was coming at all. By September 11th, the Ottomans made a final push. Their tunnels had reached beneath the city walls, ready for a decisive explosion. The last barrier protecting Vienna was hours from collapse. And then, as dawn approached, watchmen on the city walls saw movement in the distant hills. Banners, armies, a cross-continental coalition had arrived the night before the final battle. Kara Mustafa Pasha saw them too. He now faced a dangerous decision. Should he break off the siege and confront the relief force in open battle, or destroy Vienna before the coalition army could intervene? He chose to gamble, believing he could crush the defenders and force the city surrender before Sobieski's troops could fully deploy. But that decision would cost him everything. As night fell, the coalition generals held council. They agreed on a plan. The infantry would fix the Ottoman army in place, while the Polish cavalry, including the legendary winged hussars, delivered the final blow from the high ground. Everything depended on timing, and on the rising sun. The day Europe almost fell, on the morning of September 12th, the final attack began. Ottoman troops launched a massive assault on the city walls, storming toward the breaches they had created. Inside, defenders fought with the last of their strength, knowing that if they faltered, the city would fall within the hour. But just as the Ottomans pressed their advantage, they heard a rumble coming from the hills. At first it seemed like distant thunder. Then it grew louder, and louder. On the ridgeline above, the Polish cavalry, thousands strong, formed their lines. Sunlight glinted off their armor, and on their backs, the distinctive wings of the hussars rose skyward like banners of a coming storm. Then King Sobieski gave the order. The coalition launched the largest cavalry charge recorded in history. The hillside shook as the hussars drove downward, their momentum unstoppable. Ottoman lines began to break. Commanders struggled to regroup their forces, but the collapse spread rapidly. Inside the city, the defenders surged forward too, coordinating with the relief attack. Suddenly the Ottomans found themselves pressured from both outside and inside, a vice closing around them. Kara Mustafa's gamble had failed. By the afternoon, his army was in retreat. Vienna was saved, and Europe's frontier had held. After the battle, the end of a dream. The failure at Vienna marked a turning point. For the Ottoman Empire, it was the beginning of a long retreat from Central Europe. Kara Mustafa Pasha was blamed for the defeat and later executed. For the Holy Roman Empire and Poland, the victory brought prestige, and, for Sobieski, legendary status. But the significance reached beyond borders and crowns. If Vienna had fallen, Central Europe could have been reshaped dramatically. Trade, culture, politics, and religion across the continent might have taken entirely different paths. Instead, one morning's battle preserved the balance of power and redirected Europe's future. The Battle of Vienna remains one of history's defining turning points, not because it ended a war, but because it prevented a new era that was moments away from beginning. It showed how fragile continents can be, how quickly the world can shift, and how a single decision, made at dawn, can redirect the next 500 years. The echoes of that morning still influence Europe today. If you enjoy cinematic retellings of moments that changed our world, make sure to subscribe for more forgotten chapters of history. Your support helps bring these stories to life.